Welcome to Viral and Vinyl, everybody. I'm Blaze.
And I'm Electra.
And we are so excited to be kicking off our very first
Deep
dive into all kinds of music. We both have a serious passion for uncovering those musical gems that maybe flew under the radar or digging deeper into the stories behind the ones we all know and love.
Exactly. I'm excited to get to explore all these different eras and genres with everybody.
And today,
Yeah.
we're time traveling back to 1971.
Ooh.
A year that's basically a Hall of Famer for classic rock.
Definitely.
We're talking Zeppelin, the Stones, Pink Floyd, the whole crew.
Mm-hmm.
Our guide is Radio X's list of the 25 best classic rock albums from that year.
Okay.
And trust me, it's a wild ride. So looking at this list...
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's not just the heavy hitters, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
1971 had this really cool mix of genres just blossoming.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, you had folk, prog rock even, like the seeds of glam and punk were starting to kind of sprout up.
Right.
It's such a cool snapshot of an era where music was just evolving at a breakneck pace.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's dive into this sonic time capsule.
Let's go.
First up, we've got Janis Joplin's Pearl.
Oh, Pearl.
This album, released just a few months after her tragic death, really cemented her legacy as a rock icon, didn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Pearl hit #1 on the charts.
Wow.
But it's so much more than just a commercial success. It's raw emotion, pure Janis. What always gets me is the contrast between tracks like Me and Bobby McGee, you know, this rambling, almost country-tinged ballad. And then you have Mercedes-Benz, which is just her voice.
Oh, wow.
A cappella.
Yeah.
This wry commentary on consumerism. It's like two sides of the same soul laid bare.
It's such a powerful album.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, what other incredible music might we have gotten if she'd had more time?
Oh, for sure.
What's a track on this album that really grabs you? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, switching gears a bit.
Okay.
We come to the Yes album.
Ah, yes.
This is where Yes really launched themselves into the prog rock stratosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper. These tracks are epic.
They are.
They're pushing 7-8 minutes long, but they're so intricate, so layered. It's almost like classical music in a rock format.
Absolutely. And you know what's crazy?
Right.
This was before Rick Wakeman even joined the band.
Oh, wow.
So imagine the level of complexity they brought to prog after that.
Yeah.
But even on the Yes album, you can hear that ambition. They're experimenting with time signatures, different moods, weaving these extended instrumental sections in. It's definitely not your 3-minute pop song structure.
No.
Not at all.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, we can't forget Jimi Hendrix. The Cry of Love, released posthumously,
Right.
is a collection of unfinished work. But even in its rawness, it's pure Hendrix magic. Angel, drifting, you can hear the emotional range in these tracks. Some are incredibly tender, almost fragile, and then he explodes into these blistering guitar solos.
Oh, yeah.
It's heartbreaking knowing we lost him so young. But the music, even the unfinished stuff, is just breathtaking.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
All right, next up, we have a bit of a change of pace. James Taylor's Mudslide Slim and the Blue Horizon.
Okay.
This album gave us his iconic version of You've Got a Friend, written by Carole King, who actually had her own landmark album that same year.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have Hendrix pushing the boundaries of electric guitar, and then James Taylor with this quiet, introspective songwriting, both capturing the spirit of the times in completely different ways,
Yeah, it's amazing.
and both finding huge audiences, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Taylor's You've Got a Friend became this anthem of friendship and support, especially during a time of so much social and political turmoil.
Yeah.
It's a song that still resonates today, don't you think?
Absolutely. And on Mudslide Slim, you also have tracks like Long Ago and Far Away.
Oh.
This beautiful, almost wistful reflection on the passage of time. It's a side of James Taylor that I think often gets overlooked.
So next up, we have Jethro Tull's Aqualung.
Aqualung.
This album was huge.
It was.
It blended folk and prog rock in a really unique way, tackling some pretty weighty themes.
Yeah, what fascinates me about Aqualung is that it's not just this musical fusion, it's social commentary, too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you have a song like Hymn 43, you have this line, "Help me believe in what they say, for the multitudes I cannot pray." It's this direct critique of organized religion.
Wow.
Something that was really stirring up debate at the time, especially among young people.
Yeah, and Locomotive Breath,
Oh, yeah.
with its driving rhythm, Almost feels like this relentless force of modernity bearing down on you, which was another anxiety of the time.
Totally.
It's not just music, it's capturing the mood of an era.
It really is.
Definitely. And speaking of capturing a mood, the Doors released L.A. Woman in 1971. This was their final album with Jim Morrison before his death.
Yeah.
And there's a definite darkness to it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can feel it in tracks like Riders on the Storm, that haunting melody, the lyrics about hitchhiking and murder. It's classic Doors.
Yeah.
But there's an extra layer of intensity knowing it's Morrison's swan song. What are some of your favorite tracks on this one? We'd love to hear what stood out to you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the bad boys of rock.
Okay.
The Rolling Stones.
Yes.
They unleashed Sticky Fingers in '71, and it was a statement in more ways than one.
Oh, yeah. It was the launch of their own label, Rolling Stones Records.
Exactly.
And that Andy Warhol zipper cover.
Oh, come on.
Pure provocation.
Yeah.
And people loved it. But it's not just about the image, is it?
Oh, no.
The music on this album is pure gold.
Pure gold. Brown Sugar, Wild Horses, Can't You Hear Me Knocking? These are all-timers. But what really gets me is Sister Morphine, co-written with Marianne Faithfull.
Oh, wow.
It's this raw, bluesy ballad about addiction. And it's so much darker than their usual fare. It shows a different side of their songwriting.
Yeah. It's really interesting to contrast that with what Paul McCartney was doing at the time.
Yeah.
Ram, credited to Paul and Linda, had a much lighter, more whimsical feel.
Yeah, Ram is a really interesting one. It's full of these playful melodies and these quirky lyrics like Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey.
Yeah.
It's pure McCartney charm, but there's also some underlying tension. John Lennon apparently saw some of the lyrics as digs at him.
Oh, really?
And the Beatles break up, especially in the song Too Many People.
And knowing Lennon, he wasn't one to let something like that slide.
No.
His response came later that year on Imagine.
Right.
But we'll get to that a bit later.
Yeah.
Before we move on, though, we have to mention Rod Stewart.
Yes.
He was killing it in '71, both solo and with the Faces.
Oh, for sure.
His solo album, Every Picture Tells a Story, was massive.
It was huge.
Maggie May became a worldwide anthem, and the title track solidified his status as a master storyteller.
What do you think it was about Stewart's music that connected so strongly with people?
I think it's that raspy voice, the heartfelt lyrics. He just had this knack for capturing a certain yearning, like a sense of longing that I think resonated with a lot of people at the time.
Yeah, and on the other side of the spectrum, you have Joni Mitchell releasing Blue that same year.
Blue! Oh my God!
It's considered one of the most deeply personal and influential albums of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
It's raw confessional songwriting at its finest.
It is.
You can feel the vulnerability in every track.
Yeah.
It's like she's inviting you into her most private thoughts and emotions. A Case of You, River. These are songs that stay with you long after you've heard them.
And Blue also broke ground musically.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just folk. There are elements of jazz and pop in there. It's got this subtle complexity that elevates the emotional weight of the lyrics.
Wow.
It's an album that continues to resonate with listeners decades later because of its honesty and its willingness to explore the depths of human experience.
So we're already seeing how 1971 had this amazing range, from the introspective folk of Joni Mitchell to the raw power of Janis Joplin.
Totally.
It's like a kaleidoscope of musical emotions. Up next, we're heading into heavier territory with Black Sabbath.
And it's amazing how 1971 managed to pack so much sonic diversity into a single year. We've got the introspective folk, bluesy rock,
Yeah.
and now we're heading into the realm of heavy metal with Black Sabbath.
Oh, yeah.
Their album Master of Reality was their third studio release, and it really solidified their status as pioneers of the genre.
Sweet Leaf, Children of the Grave.
Oh, yeah.
These tracks are heavy, man.
Yeah.
Those down-tuned riffs, the dark lyrics, the overall sense of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
They weren't afraid to explore the darker side of the human experience, and it clearly resonated with a lot of people. And what's interesting is how Black Sabbath's music tapped into a sense of alienation and rebellion that was bubbling beneath the surface of society at the time. You had the Vietnam War raging, social and political unrest. There was a real sense of disillusionment among a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And Black Sabbath provided a soundtrack for that angst.
It's like they were giving voice to a generation that felt like they didn't fit in, a generation that was questioning everything.
Exactly.
And musically, they were doing things that no one else was doing at the time.
Right.
They were experimenting with distortion, down-tuning their guitars, creating these massive sludgy riffs that were both Terrifying and exhilarating.
Oh, yeah. And, while Black Sabbath was delving into the depths of metal, another band was exploring a completely different sonic landscape.
Okay.
And a German band released Tagomago in 1971, and it's considered a landmark achievement in krautrock.
Krautrock, for those who aren't familiar, is a genre that emerged in Germany in the late 60s. It's characterized by its experimental nature, its hypnotic rhythms, and its use of electronic instruments.
Right.
And Tagomago is a perfect example of what krautrock can be. It's trippy, atmospheric.
Oh, yeah.
And unlike anything else that was happening at the time.
It's almost like they were creating music from another dimension. You have these long, sprawling tracks with these swirling, psychedelic soundscapes. And the rhythms are so insistent, so hypnotic. It's music that takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
And you never quite know where you're going to end up.
But it's amazing to think that this album was released the same year as Master of Reality and Blue.
I know.
1971 was such a fertile year for musical exploration.
It was.
It's like artists were drawing from all sorts of influences, blending genres, creating something entirely new.
Absolutely. And speaking of groundbreaking albums, we have to talk about the Who's Next.
Oh, yeah.
It dropped in August of 71, and it's a masterpiece of rock opera, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pete Townshend's ambition on this album is off the charts.
Yeah.
He originally conceived it as part of this massive multimedia project called Lifehouse, which ultimately fell apart.
Yeah.
But the music that came out of it, pure gold.
Pure gold. Baba O'Reilly, Behind Blue Eyes, Won't Get Fooled Again.
Yeah.
These songs became instant classics.
Yeah.
And they still sound fresh and vital today. What do you think it is about Who's Next that makes it so enduring?
I think it's a combination of things. The songwriting is brilliant, the musicianship is top-notch, and the production is incredibly innovative. They were using synthesizers in ways that had never been done before, creating these huge, epic soundscapes.
And Townshend's lyrics are so powerful. He's exploring these themes of alienation, rebellion, and the search for meaning in a rapidly changing world.
Right.
It's music that speaks to the heart and the mind.
And let's not forget the sheer energy of the Who's performance.
Oh, yeah.
They were a force of nature on stage.
Yeah.
And that energy comes through loud and clear on Who's Next.
Now, while the Who was conquering the world of rock opera, Deep Purple was busy solidifying their own unique brand of hard rock with Fireball.
Oh, yeah.
Released in September of 71.
This album marked their first #1 hit in the UK.
Right.
And it features some of their most iconic tracks, including Strange Kind of Woman, Fireball, and The Mule.
What's interesting about Fireball is that it showcases Deep Purple's incredible technical prowess.
Oh, they were masters of their instruments. Ritchie Blackmore's guitar playing is blistering.
Yeah.
John Lord's organ work is epic. And Ian Gillan's vocals are just out of this world.
They had this incredible interplay between the instruments, this virtuosic back and forth that was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about showing off their skills, it was about creating music that was both complex and accessible, both heavy and melodic.
And speaking of heavy and melodic, let's talk about T-Rex. Their album Electric Warrior, released in late September of 71, was a game changer for glam rock.
Mark Bolan was a true original. Oh, yeah.
He had this androgynous look, these sparkly outfits, and this swaggering stage presence that was just irresistible.
Right.
And the music on Electric Warrior is pure glam rock perfection.
It is. Get It On became a massive hit.
Yeah.
And it's still a staple of rock radio today.
Oh, yeah.
But the whole album is full of these catchy riffs, these infectious grooves, and these lyrics that are both playful and suggestive.
It's music that makes you want to move, to dance, to let loose.
Yeah.
And it had a huge impact on fashion and culture.
Oh, for sure.
Bolan's style, his music, his whole persona, it's like he was channeling something that was just waiting to be unleashed.
And, while T-Rex was bringing the glam, Don McLean was taking a very different approach with his album American Pie.
Oh, yeah.
Released in October of 71.
American Pie, the song, became an instant folk rock classic.
It did.
It's this 8-minute epic that's full of symbolism and allegory. People have been debating its meaning for decades, but beyond the mystery, it's just a beautiful, haunting song.
It's a song about loss, about nostalgia, about the end of an era.
Yeah.
And it resonated deeply with a lot of people at the time. It's like it captured a sense of disillusionment and uncertainty that was hanging over America in the early 70s.
And Vincent Another track on the album
Oh, yeah.
is this gorgeous tribute to Vincent van Gogh.
Mm.
It's a testament to McLean's songwriting ability, his ability to create these evocative portraits with his words and music.
So we have T-Rex with their glittery glam rock and Don McLean with his introspective folk rock.
Great.
It's another example of the incredible range of music that was coming out of 1971.
And that range continues with Cat Stevens, now known as Yusuf,
Right.
who released Teaser and the Firecat in October of '71.
This album is full of warmth, gentle melodies, and spiritual reflections. Tracks like Morning Has Broken, Moonshadow, and Peace Train became instant classics. And they remain staples of his live performances to this day. What do you think it is about Cat Stevens' music that has such enduring appeal?
I think it's his sincerity, his honesty.
Yeah.
His music has this timeless quality that transcends genres. It's comforting, inspiring, and deeply moving.
Yeah.
And it speaks to a longing for peace, for connection, for something beyond the material world.
And that longing for peace and connection is also present in John Lennon's Imagine,
Oh, yeah?
which was released just a few weeks after Teaser and the Firecat.
Imagine is one of the most iconic albums of all time.
It is.
The title track became an anthem for peace and unity, and it's still relevant today.
Absolutely.
Maybe even more so than it was back then.
It's a powerful song with a simple message that resonates deeply. Imagine a world without war, without poverty, without hatred. It's a utopian vision, but it's one that continues to inspire people around the world.
And Imagine is more than just a political statement. It's also a deeply personal album. Songs like Jealous Guy and Oh My Love explore themes of vulnerability, love, and loss. It's Lennon at his most raw and honest.
But Imagine also contains a few barbs aimed at his former bandmate, Paul McCartney.
Oh!
Remember that tension we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of comes to a head on the song How Do You Sleep,
Yeah.
which was a direct response to some of the perceived digs in McCartney's Ram.
The lyrical tension between those two albums is fascinating.
It is.
It's a glimpse into the complex relationship between these two musical giants.
Yeah.
Two men who had created some of the most important music of the 20th century and who are now engaged in this very public feud.
It adds another layer to the story of 1971 this year that was already overflowing with creativity, innovation, and drama.
Speaking of drama,
Yeah.
Pink Floyd was about to release an album that would become one of their most enduring and beloved works.
Oh, yeah.
Metal came out in October of '71, and it marked a turning point for the band.
Metal is where you really start to hear Pink Floyd developing their signature sound.
Yeah.
They're experimenting with longer, more atmospheric compositions, creating these sonic journeys that are both beautiful and unsettling.
And the standout track, Echoes, is a masterpiece.
Oh, it is.
It takes up an entire side of the album, and it's like this sprawling, psychedelic dreamscape.
Yeah.
It's one of those songs that you have to experience to truly understand.
Right.
It's not just about listening, it's about feeling.
Echoes is pure sonic exploration. They're using all sorts of effects.
Yeah.
Tape-looped delays.
Yeah.
It's like they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the recording studio.
And the rest of Metal is full of gems as well.
Oh, yeah.
One of these days. With its menacing bass line, fearless, with its haunting melody, it's an album that rewards repeated listens. It's like peeling back layers of an onion. There's always something new to discover.
And then, of course, we have the album that needs no introduction, Led Zeppelin's untitled fourth album, commonly known as Led Zeppelin the Fourth.
Right.
It was released in November of '71, and it's a cornerstone of classic rock.
This album is a monster.
It is.
Stairway to Heaven, Black Dog,
Yeah.
Rock and Roll, When the Levee Breaks.
Oh, my gosh.
These are all anthems.
Yeah,
And they're all in the same album.
I know.
It's almost overwhelming.
It's an album that showcases the full range of Led Zeppelin's musical prowess.
Yeah.
You have the heavy blues riffs, the delicate acoustic passages,
Yeah.
Robert Plant's soaring vocals, John Bonham's thunderous drumming. It's all there.
And it's not just about the individual tracks. The album flows seamlessly from one song to the next, creating this epic sonic journey that takes you through all sorts of moods and emotions.
Yeah.
It's an album that you can get lost in.
And it's an album that has had an immeasurable impact on music. Countless bands have been influenced by Led Zeppelin. Continues to this day. It's one of those albums that transcends time and genre.
It's a masterpiece, plain and simple.
It is.
But 1971 wasn't done with us yet. there were still a few more surprises up its sleeve.
It's wild to think that even after all those groundbreaking albums, 1971 still had more to offer.
I know, right?
In November, alongside Led Zeppelin's Behemoth, you had The Faces releasing A Nod Is As Good As a Wink to a Blind Horse.
Oh yeah, The Faces.
This was their third studio album, and it really captured the raw energy and the good time vibes of their live shows.
Yeah, Stay With Me.
Oh, Stay With
Yeah,
Me
that's a good song.
became a huge hit for them, and it's this perfect blend of bluesy swagger and rock and roll grit. But the whole album is just a blast to listen to. It's like a party in a record sleeve. You can practically hear the beers sloshing and the crowd cheering.
They weren't afraid to be loose, to have fun.
No, not at all.
And that energy is infectious. It's a great contrast to some of the more serious, introspective albums we've been talking about. It reminds us that rock and roll is supposed to be about letting loose and having a good time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even with all the partying, there's a real depth to their music. Rod Stewart's voice is full of soul.
Oh, yeah.
Ronnie Wood's guitar playing is fiery and inventive,
Mm.
and the songwriting is top-notch.
Yeah, it's not just mindless fun. There's a real craft there.
Exactly.
And while the Faces were busy rocking out, the Kinks were taking a more reflective and nostalgic approach with Muswell Hillbillies, also released in November of '71.
Oh, Muswell Hillbillies, what a great album.
Yeah.
It's a love letter to their North London roots, and it's full of Ray Davies' sharp wit and social commentary. Tracks like 20th Century Man and Muswell Hillbilly are both funny and poignant. They capture the everyday lives and struggles of working-class people with a mix of empathy and satire that's uniquely Kinks.
Muswell Hillbillies wasn't a huge commercial success at the time, but it's aged incredibly well.
It has.
It's considered one of their most important and enduring albums. I think it resonates even more today because it speaks to a lot of the anxieties we're facing now about technology, about social change, about feeling lost in the modern world.
It's timeless, in a way. And then we have the master of shock rock himself,
Oh,
Alice Cooper, releasing Killer in late November '71. This album is a wild ride. It's full of dark humor, theatrical flair,
yeah.
and hard-rocking anthems.
Under My Wheels, Be My Lover,
Oh, yeah.
Dead Babies are just a few of the highlights.
Oh, come on, Dead Babies.
Alice Cooper was pushing boundaries and challenging social norms with his outrageous stage persona and his macabre lyrics. It was shocking at the time, and it's still pretty edgy today.
He was a true original.
Yeah.
And he tapped into something that was both terrifying and thrilling for audiences. He was playing with our deepest fears and taboos, using humor and theatricality to kind of confront us with the dark side of human nature.
It's fascinating how Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, even Led Zeppelin to some extent, were all exploring these darker themes in their music. It seems like there was a real appetite for that kind of intensity in 1971.
Absolutely. It was a time of social and political upheaval.
Yeah.
And music became a way to process those anxieties, to confront them head on. It wasn't all about peace and love. There was a darkness brewing, and these artists weren't afraid to tap into it.
Yeah. And then, as if things weren't interesting enough already, along comes David Bowie with Hunky Dory, released in December of '71.
Bowie.
This album is a pivotal moment in his career.
It is.
It's where we see him starting to develop the persona that would make him a global icon.
Oh, for sure.
Hunky Dory is such a departure from his earlier work. It's full of these theatrical flourishes, these larger-than-life characters, and this playful exploration of identity. Tracks like Changes, Life on Mars, and Oh, You Pretty Things are all classics.
Oh, yeah.
And they hint at the glam rock revolution that Bowie would spearhead just a year later with Ziggy Stardust.
Exact.
It's an album that's both incredibly stylish and deeply introspective. You have these moments of pure pop brilliance, and then you have songs like Quicksand that delve into existential themes and personal anxieties. It's Bowie at his most eclectic and most engaging.
Absolutely. And then to close out this incredible year in music, we have George Harrison's The Concert for Bangladesh, a triple live album released in December of '71.
Oh, wow.
This was more than just a concert. It was a historical event. George Harrison organized this massive benefit concert at Madison Square Garden, bringing together an all-star lineup that included Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, Ringo Starr, Leon Russell, Billy Preston, and Ravi Shankar. They raised millions of dollars for refugees from the Bangladesh Liberation War, and it was a groundbreaking moment in music history.
It was one of the first major benefit concerts.
Yeah.
And it paved the way for events like Live Aid. And the music on the album is incredible.
Yeah.
You have Harrison performing some of his greatest songs like While My Guitar Gently Weeps and My Sweet Lord, and you have Dylan coming out of seclusion to perform a set of classics. It's a truly historic document.
It is.
And it captures the spirit of 1971 perfectly. A year of experimentation, innovation, and social awareness. It was a year where music truly mattered.
It's incredible to think about the sheer volume of talent and creativity that emerged in just 12 months. And so many of these albums are still relevant today.
I know.
They continue to inspire artists, influence music, and resonate with listeners across generations.
I think that speaks to the power of music. It transcends time and place. It connects us on a deeper level. And it reminds us that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into 1971, I'm curious, what stands out to you the most? What's the one thing you'll take away from this journey?
For me, it's the sheer diversity and fearlessness of the music. Artists were pushing boundaries, experimenting with new sounds, and tackling complex themes. It was a year that redefined what rock music could be. And it left a legacy that we're still feeling today.
That's a great point. 1971 was a year of incredible musical ferment, and we're still reaping the benefits of that creativity today. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to go back and explore these albums. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Yeah. And let us know what your favorites are.
Definitely.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the music of 1971. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a different era of musical history. Until then, keep those turntables spinning and those playlists rocking.
For sure.